Vashivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Srinvata Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridayantastoya Bhadrani Vidhanoti Suhritsatam. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our Srimad Bhagavatam discussion from third canto, chapter 20, conversation between Vidura and Maitreya, verse 40 and 41. Verse 40, Shrishtvā bhūta pishachamscha bhagavanatmatandrina digvasaso muktakeshan viksha chamilayadrishau. Synonyms. Srishtva, having created. Bhuta, ghosts. Pishachan, fiends. Cha, and. Bhagavan, Lord Brahma. Atma, his. Tandrina, from laziness. Dik vasasaha, naked. Mukta, dishelped. Keshan, hair. Vikshya, seeing. Cha, and. Amilayat, closed. Drishav, two eyes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abheshwar Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The glorious Brahma next evolved from his sloth the ghosts and fiends, but he closed his eyes when he saw them stand naked with their hair scattered. Purport. Ghosts and mischievous hobgoblins are also the creation of Brahma. They are not false. All of them are meant for putting the conditioned soul into various miseries. They are understood to be the creation of Brahma under the direction of the Supreme Lord. We'll also read the translation of verse 41 and then continue. Translation. The ghosts and hobgoblins took possession of the body thrown off in the form of yawning by Brahma, the creator of the living entities. This is also known as the sleep which causes drooling. The hobgoblins and ghosts attack men who are impure, and their attack is spoken of as insanity. Purport. The disease of insanity or being haunted by ghosts takes place in an unclean state of existence. Here, it is clearly stated that when a man is fast asleep and saliva flows from his mouth and he remains unclean, ghosts then take advantage of his unclean state and haunt his body. In other words, those who drool while sleeping are considered unclean and are subject to be haunted by ghosts or to go insane. Let's offer some prayers and we can start some discussion. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining. So we restarted the usual flow of Srimad Bhagavatam from yesterday. Govinda Mohini Mataji restarted the whole flow after almost more than a month of delving deep into the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing from various devotees. So with that mood, we are restarting. And just to set the context, we are restarting from the place where we left, where Vidura and Maitra are having this conversation about the overall creation. We completed Varahadev's appearance, and after that, Vidura asked Maitreya about the further creations that Lord Brahma did, and we completed certain sections where Brahma was created, demons and demigods and other things. So today we are discussing about the other set of creation that Lord Brahma did, where Lord Brahma next created ghosts and fiends, and the verse also talks about what is the impact that they have and other things. So as I was reading through these verses, once Lakshmikant Prabhu sent the schedule, I read through this verse, and um, there were a lot of kind of tangents that were going on in my head. We could talk about the aspect of cleanliness and because primarily this verse is primarily talking about the concept of purity, and how when we are impure, what kind of effect that it will have, not just on an external level but also on internal level, where the probability of these ghosts or uncleanly or subtle creatures attacking our physical and subtle level is also high. But as I was kind of thinking, uh, I just realized that this purport that Srila Prabhupada gave for the verse 40, I was seeing it from the lens of, I don't know, there's a famous saying in Telugu, in my mother tongue, where Srimad Ramayanam is actually translated. Sometimes it's said as, if you want to convey Srimad Ramayanam, there's this bigger sense of conveying from the Balakanda till the Uttarakanda. And in other sense, there is also a version of Srimad Ramayana which they say is as can be said in three words. One is katte kotte teche, which means katte is constructing, where the bridge was constructed. Kotte means that he is defeated, Ravana was defeated, and teche means she was brought back, Mother Sita was brought back. So in essence, Ramayana can be translated or can be conveyed in these three words, where the bridge was constructed, Ravana was killed, and Mother Sita was brought back. In essence, that. And I was also seeing this purport that Srila Prabhupada gave. There are only three lines. One is conveying the reality that they are not false. The ghosts and hobgoblins are not false. So that's kind of the reality. And then he is also saying all of them are meant for putting the conditioned soul into various miseries. So he's explaining the purpose. Once the reality is there, then he's explaining what is the purpose of there. And then finally he's saying they're understood to be the creation of Brahma under the direction of Supreme Lord. He is conveying the essence of everything that happens. And I was we'll just discuss how does how these three words katte kotte teche is conveying the overall essence of Srimad Ramayanam. And in this beautiful purport, which didn't appear in the beginning, but as I was delving deeper, we'll also see how these three sentences are in essence of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey through these three sentences. We'll see how is it that kind of encapsulating our whole journey of devotional service, and what are the lessons that we learn. And starting with the first sentence, ghosts and mischievous hobgoblins are also the creation of Brahma. They are not false. So Srila Prabhupada is starting the whole discussion by establishing the fact of that in many instances we also hear that, oh, the ghosts are not real, it's just in mind creation and all of that. So Prabhupada is kind of refuting that fact and establishing the fact that no, they're not false. So he's kind of giving us this. So this first sentence from the purport is teaching us the lesson of accepting the reality. And in our devotional service, the step one starts with accepting the reality. And just to establish this sentence of accepting the reality, I was planning to take. So in this whole discussion, we'll be taking lessons from three personalities: Vyasadeva, Arjuna, and Dhruva Maharaj, and just try to see how the three lessons that Srila Prabhupada is trying to teach through his purport, how do these personalities of Vyasadeva, Arjuna, and Dhruva Maharaj kind of personify these three lessons, and what kind of journey that kind of they take us on. And if you see in the case of Vyasadeva or Arjuna, and to a degree also Dhruva Maharaj, what they first did was they accepted the reality. If you see in the words that Vyasadeva actually tells to Narada Muni when Narada Muni comes, from Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, chapter 5, verse 5, he says that uh, he accepted the fact that he was despondent. He's dissatisfied with whatever the work that he has done. He has accepted the reality of the situation that he was in, and from that state he says that, because you know the ultimate truth, can you please convey what should be my next steps? And also the famous words that Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, karpanya dosho bhata swabhava prichami dharma samuda chetaha. He says that I've kind of lost track of what is dharma and what is even reality, and I'm in this state of full confusion. So both Vyasadeva and Arjuna accepted the reality of their dissatisfaction and their confusion. And from that state, they were able to take the shelter of their spiritual master. In the case of Vyasadeva, it was Narada Muni. And in the case of Arjuna, it was the Supreme Lord himself. So the first step that they took was accepting the reality. And what it is also what Srila Prabhupada is also trying to tell us. And interestingly, Dhruva Maharaj is slightly different, but the underlying is the same thing. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, in fact, Vyasadeva and Arjuna, for both Vyasadeva also, it was not that Vyasadeva didn't approach Narada Muni, like Narada Muni was sitting in his ashram and Vyasadeva didn't walk into Narada Muni. In the case of Arjuna and Krishna also, we could say that because Krishna was in some ways following Arjuna to wherever he was going. Arjuna walked. So Krishna was kind of following because he was the chariot driver. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj also, Narada Muni, Dhruva Maharaj was just going on his path. Narada Muni interjected that path. And then the first instruction that Narada Muni gave him was, you're just a 5-year-old boy. The anger that you're portraying in telling your whole story, this is not something that a 5-year-old boy should kind of carry. Like having a 5-year-old boys, myself, I kind of can sometimes see that anytime they're angry, we say that, oh, it's okay to be disappointed, but the way that you're showing your anger is not valid. So similarly, Narada Muni was also saying that Dhruva, I can understand that what the situation that you went through was not ideal, but you being in this state of having this anger and having this huge aspiration of achieving this is not correct for somebody of your age. And Dhruva Maharaj, in that state, he says that whatever you're saying is right, but I'm not at that stage. Dhruva Maharaj was not being unrealistic and saying that, okay, because you're such a big sage, whatever you're going to say, I'm just going to blindly accept. Dhruva Maharaj accepted his reality of where he was, saying that in my state, what I am, the instructions that you are giving are kind of unrealistic for me. I cannot accept anything that you're saying. Maybe what you're saying is fully valid, that nobody should kind of carry this grudge or anger. But to the level that I am in, there's no way that I can accept here. So in the case of Vyasadeva and Arjuna, they accepted the situation and accepted of their dissatisfaction and confusion. And Dhruva Maharaj accepted the reality of not being in that level. In one sense, Dhruva Maharaj was kind of, to some degree, Vyasadeva and Arjuna understood their problem of dissatisfaction and confusion, but Dhruva Maharaj was in a degree kind of completely lost, and he said, no, whatever you're saying, you tell, this is what I want. And as a spiritual master, all I'm seeking to you is how can I achieve this? This is my end goal. You just give me the means of achieving that end goal. And Vyasadeva, Arjuna, what they were saying was, we are totally lost. We don't know what we want. Just please tell us what should be my way forward. And so in all three of them, the first step that they did was accepting the reality. And once they accepted the reality, that's when they were able to fully take shelter of the spiritual master. And as His Holiness Rampad Maharaj, in many of his, especially in recent trip that he came, as he told multiple times, especially when he was quoting the whole concept of Buddhism and other things, he used to say that Buddhism says root cause of all the sufferings is desire, but then he would say that actually the root cause of all sufferings is ignorance. And even in kind of continuation of the second verse of the 41st verse, and like both 40 and 41, we see that it's saying that the effects that will have on somebody who is unclean in just in his physical presence, where it says, as Prabhupada writes, this is the here it is clearly stated that when a man is fast asleep and saliva flows from his mouth and he remains unclean, ghosts then take advantage of his unclean state and haunt his body. So it's like the end stage of having an impure state of life. And as we all understand, an impure state of life happens like a room doesn't get dirty by itself. A room will eventually get dirty because of an consistent activity of just throwing things everywhere and not kind of following it through by cleaning. And of and the activity doesn't just start by itself, but the activity starts by having the desire of, let's say, I want to cook. My whole kitchen is unclean. The kitchen is unclean because I did the activity of cleaning. The activity of cleaning happened because I had the desire to eat, and the desire to eat, we don't follow it up with cleaning because of the ignorance of not knowing what is the effect that it will eventually have of not following up with desire. So in essence, ignorance is the starting point, and because of ignorance, we will have the impure desire, and because of impure desire, we'll have impure activity, and that impure activity will eventually lead to the impure state of life, which Srila Prabhupada here is saying, for somebody who is sleeping and then drooling through because of the whole contaminated and impure state of existence that it is there, it attracts all negative elements of the subtle elements, which is kind of represented by the ghosts and hobgoblins. In expanding this idea of ignorance, impure desire, impure activity, and impure state of life to Arjuna and Vyasadeva also, they also understood that the misery that they are going through of dissatisfaction and the confusion was ultimately because of the ignorance of the ultimate duty. Whereas in the case of Arjuna, Arjuna just felt that there's no point in just fighting everybody that is in front of me. I'm seeing my sons, I'm seeing my father, like my uncles, I'm seeing my teachers, I'm seeing my grandfathers, and many of my friends who have just I grew up playing or have met somewhere. So everybody that he knew were just standing in front of him. And in the case of Vyasadeva, he just went through this whole activity of writing everything. And in spite of all of that, at this stage, they understood that their misery was caused by the ignorance of ultimate duty. And Narada Muni and Krishna then went on, when they approached, went on to actually instruct them on the actual knowledge. And in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, even though he didn't ask him directly to uplift him from the situation of ignorance that he was in, he said that this is my end goal. I want the greatest kingdom that is ever there, greater than my father's father's father. And all I'm asking you is, how can I achieve that? Even though he was not asking him to, oh, please take me, uplift me from this situation of ignorance. But the solution that Narada Muni gave him ultimately took him to a state where he fully realized the same end result that Arjuna and Vyasadeva had of actually understanding the ultimate duty. Similarly, for Dhruva Maharaj also, ultimately he understood when Lord Padmanabhi appeared in front of him. He goes on to this beautiful prayer that Dhruva Maharaj says that, oh, I was looking out for these broken pieces of glasses when I had the access of the most precious diamond. So even though Dhruva Maharaj kind of didn't seek out that position that he eventually went up to, because of the actual thing of accepting the reality and taking shelter of the spiritual master and following it through with the instructions that he gave him, ultimately he also achieved the same result that Arjuna and Vyasadeva achieved. So in some ways, it goes back to the famous verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Akama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kama. So if you translate that into these three personalities, Akamaha, somebody who doesn't have any desires. Arjuna represents that. He was saying, I don't want anything. I just want to go back into forest and I want to become a mendicant. Neither do I want to win the war, nor do I want to lose the war. I just don't have any desire. Whereas Dhruva Maharaj was Sarvakama. He was saying that I want this biggest of these kingdoms that I have there. So Arjuna is representing that Akamaha. Dhromara is representing Sarvakama, and Vyasadeva, he didn't add any external gain that he's going to have. All he was saying was whatever is going to uplift the overall humanity. So he was coming from that level of moksha kama. His whole desire in some ways was to kind of uplift everybody that is there. So Arjuna was akamaha, Dromara was sarvakamaha, and Vyasadeva was moksha kama. And as Srimad Bhagavatam says, whatever it could be, you could be akama, you could have no desire, you could have all the desires that is there in the material existence, or you could be achieving, or you could be aspiring for liberation. And as these three personalities are representing, as long as we are accepting the reality and performing the devotional service under the able instructions of a spiritual master and following it up as we are being instructed by the spiritual master, ultimately we will achieve the pure devotional service as represented by Dhruv Maharaj, as represented by Arjuna, and as represented by Vyasadeva. So that's the step one that Srila Prabhupada is saying of accepting the reality. And then the second one, the second sentence that he says is all of them are meant for putting the conditioned soul into various miseries. So once that step of accepting the reality is there, then Srila Prabhupada is then presenting the next step of understanding the purpose. He's saying that the ghosts and hobgoblins are not false, but they have a specific purpose that they are created or existing for. And that is for putting the conditioned soul into various miseries. So we might say that why is it that like we might say that, oh, all my miseries are because of these ghosts and hobgoblins that are created. And fortunately, the next verse then follows it up by saying that those actually give us miseries because of the unclean presence of state that we are in. So it's as I think we hear, we cannot always go back and blame somebody who is carrying our result of our karma. So similarly, we cannot just go back and say that ghosts and hobgoblins are to be blamed. But if we are in the pure state of existence that we are in, then there is no way that ghosts or hobgoblins get attracted to our presence. And taking this sentence of understanding the purpose to the three personalities that we are discussing, of Arjuna, Vyasadeva, and Dhruva, yes, that they have accepted the reality, they have performed the devotional service and are in this state of Vyasadeva. So the end result was Vyasadeva wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, Arjuna accepted to fight, and Dhruva Maharaj had the darshan of Padmanabha. But what's interesting is what follows up after they achieve that end state of pure devotional service. Vyasadeva wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, but he didn't say that, oh, all the literature that I have done actually has caused me dissatisfaction and pain, so there is no purpose for them. He didn't go back and discard all the other Vedic literatures that he had done, that he has written. He understood that Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all spiritual knowledge, all Vedic literature, but he also understood the purpose of everything that he has done till that point. He didn't go back. From a partial point of view, we might say that the other Puranas, out of the 18 Puranas, we kind of segregate that there are 6 Puranas in the mode of goodness, 6 Puranas in mode of ignorance, and 6 Puranas in mode of passion. So he didn't go back and say that only mode of goodness is required. Let me just discard mode of ignorance and mode of passion scriptures. He was not looking at it from a partial point of view by saying that the other Puranas are a deviation. But in a broader absolute sense, he actually understood the purpose of every single specific line and the specific word that he wrote have a bigger, in a broader absolute sense, they have a specific purpose, which is kind of the overall greater plan of the Lord, that there are living entities in each of these modes, and these scriptures are supposed to kind of elevate, for somebody who is in mode of passion, the scriptures, the Puranas which are in mode of passion are supposed to kind of elevate them from the mode of passion to the mode of goodness, and from mode of goodness to the Amala Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. And for somebody who is there, come to Srimad Bhagavatam, that's when they kind of will understand the glories of devotional service. So Vyasadeva understood the purpose of everything that he has done. Even in the case of Arjuna, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, one of the first instructions that Krishna actually gives him, because Arjuna's primary concern was that how am I going to kill everybody? One of the first instructions that Krishna says is that the soul is never going to die. There's no destruction or anything. But during the war, when Abhimanyu died, or when Bhishma Dev died, for somebody who has experienced, any of us, all of us, I'm sure, have experienced some death in the family. For anybody who goes through the experience of a death of a close family member, what to speak of his own son and his own grandfather, who was the most loving presence in his life, losing both of them, I'm sure, was the most traumatic experience for Arjuna. For Arjuna, kind of never had this experience of actually perceiving the death of his father. So after growing up and in that stage of where he had this grown-up son, in that stage, losing Abhimanyu and losing Bhishma, there was, I'm sure, would have been a traumatic experience for Arjuna. But he didn't say that, oh, now I have heard Bhagavad Gita, now I understood that Abhimanyu and Bhishma Dev are not the bodies, they are the soul, and I'm not going to go through these emotions. He went through those emotions. What Bhagavad Gita taught him is that the Bhagavad Gita didn't make him an emotionless rock, but made him more sensitive to the actual duty that he needs to perform. Even though Abhimanyu died, even though in fact, Arjuna himself shot arrows to Bhishma Dev, what made him was understanding the actual purpose of his life, of being the instrument in the hands of Krishna. So he didn't, sometimes I think I remember Gaurang Prabhu once was joking, saying that when Abhimanyu died and Arjuna was going through all of this, Krishna was thinking, what is the purpose of me telling Bhagavad Gita? But that's from kind of from a funny standpoint. But Arjuna actually understood the actual purpose was of being of the instrument in the hands of Krishna. And from that standpoint, he went through the emotions, but he was able to bounce back and do the actual duty that he needs to perform. And even in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, the same person who was the cause of his whole suffering of being insulted by Surichi, Uttama, once Dhruva Maharaj came back from the forest, he didn't say that, oh, now I'm the pure devotee, now I am qualified to be the king of this whole kingdom. I'm going to seek revenge against my stepbrother and stepmother, and he didn't discard them. In fact, when Yakshas killed Uttama, he actually goes on war against the whole of Yakshas and starts just killing the whole of Yakshas. And eventually only was stopped by Lord Brahma coming. So in each of these three personalities, Vyasadeva or Arjuna or Dhruva Maharaj, just because they have achieved that purpose, the ultimate goal of devotional service, they didn't discard everything, all the relations, or in the case of Vyasadeva, all the work that he did, or in the case of Arjuna, kind of becoming an emotionless rock. But what he did was kind of understanding the actual purpose. And then the step 3 is realizing the essence, which is the sentence that Srila Prabhupada says here, is they are understood to be the creation of Brahma under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So once he has established that acceptance of the reality that the ghosts and hobgoblins are not false, and then he has also presented to us the purpose of them, that they're meant, what is the purpose of their existence. But ultimately he's also bringing us to that point of essence, saying that everything is happening under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And similarly, in the case of Vyasadeva or Arjuna or Dhruva Maharaj, they're able to understand the purpose because they understood the essence of whatever activity that is happening in their life. Either in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, either it could be getting insulted by the Suruchi, the most painful situation that he went through, or it could be meeting Narada Muni and getting the instruction to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Dhruva Maharaj, once he had the darshan of Lord, he was able to see both of them as being orchestrated by the Lord himself. He was not seeing his life from something as separate from the under the direction of the Supreme Lord, but he was seeing overall his life as an essence of everything that is happening through performing devotional service. He's able to see that ultimately every situation is under the direction of the Lord. And just to end at this point, is, as Radhika Raman Prabhu said in our Gita Nagari retreat that we had this year, as when he was saying about the whole about the tips of talking to Krishna, he was also saying this beautiful point where every story, every devotee, or every situation that we are going through will have a backstory, and we'll also have an inside story. And for us, as Srila Prabhupada is teaching us, all it takes for us is to kind of, in that journey of accepting the reality, and once we accepted the reality, then also from that standpoint of accepting the reality, from the absolute standpoint, understanding the purpose of everything that we have, and once we understood the purpose, we'll also be able to realize the essence that every situation is under the direction of the Lord. And as His Holiness Prabhupada Maharaj says, that's when by from in that state of accepting the reality of knowledge, we'll be able to cut the ignorance. And just when we are in that standpoint of going beyond the ignorance, these any of these fears that we might have of ghosts or fiends or anything that we have, what to speak of ghosts or fiends or any other fear that we have, when we are looking at from the absolute standpoint of having that absolute knowledge of accepting the reality, understanding the purpose, and realizing the essence of everything being under the direction of the Lord. Maybe externally it is a creation of Brahma, or somebody else is acting weirdly, somebody is coming and hitting me. It is true that when that situation is happening, it is absolutely, to a degree, impossible, at least to me, to kind of see that, oh, it is happening under the direction of the Supreme Lord. But we are so blessed to have the presence of Srimad Bhagavatam, many devotees, where we have this opportunity of discussing and sharing our own struggles that we have. And as long as we are able to come back to that state of accepting the reality, the subsequent steps of understanding the purpose and realizing the essence will follow through. And with that, I just hope to end here, saying that there's a lot of things that happen for each of us on a day-to-day basis. I hope that especially I will be able to kind of come back to that state of accepting the reality of being in this situation, of my own frailties, and seeking shelter of my Guru Vargas, and kind of going on that journey of understanding the purpose and realizing the essence. With that, I'm sorry I took 4 minutes more, but if there are any corrections or comments, the floor is open. If not, we can end. I think Lakshmikant Bro had to drop. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.